Learn to be super successful. Subscribe to my channel, Meathead.
Okay.
So
this is the deal.
Okay, 60 minutes.
Yeah. So this morning I'm going to present a deal to you guys that was brought to me on my board of directors. One of the directors was a director of this company called Allied Dental. Allied Dental was a dental group of 42 dental practices in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Maryland. So if I drew the map of the United States, they were in this sector, the northeast sector of the United States. The board member and I are in constant communication, and he brought an idea to me that because you're doing so well with the systems, with the current acquisition, I think that you should acquire this opportunity. They were considering to go to market, but I acquired the intelligence beforehand and I began my due diligence. And the document that you guys have, it looks like this, Project Ivory, right here, is the document that was given to me by the investment bankers looking to sell the group. A bit more information about the group.
Yes.
This dental group is backed by a private equity called Riverside. So this is the name of the dental group, and Riverside is the private equity group that is overseeing this company. And as I tell you this story, I'm going to share with you my takeaways from this experience. This was one of the first times I actually was on the other side of the negotiating table with private equities. And what I learned is that they're not that smart as their reputation would lead you to believe. The people that I was sitting across from the table were young, early 30s, late 20s year old that didn't know how to even shave their face. And they came to the table very disorganized and an infinite amount of insecurities that just I could smell it off them. So, but they were part of an institution that was reputable, and that was the only thing that was going for them. But they were in a position to sell because it was March 2020 was one of the worst times for dentistry. A lot of clinics had closed. They came to the market in June of 2020, and they wanted to close by July. That was their timeline. Okay.
In 1 month?
In 1 month, they were so desperate to close. They had 42 practices. Half of the practices were closed down because of COVID restrictions.
Okay.
It's not that they had to close, but because they wanted to close. And they were bleeding about $5 million a quarter. $5 million every 3 months. They were bleeding.
They were losing.
They were losing.
Don't buy.
You know? Well,
Yes.
there's a reason why they were losing. And it wasn't because of COVID.
Because
it was
closed.
because they were mismanaging. Okay? They were absentee landlords. They owned these practices, but they wouldn't be at the sites to manage the people. And there was a significant loss of morale. When an owner comes to the practice, the people move. The energy changes. These owners were never there. The management was never there.
And you wanted to implement the Blondie model to all of the practices.
Yeah, put your hands on their throat and make them work, right? Or else they won't work. So all this information was not in the offer memorandum, by the way.
Of course.
The offer memorandum speaks to you about how much money they're making, what are the projections, how well they're doing.
The fucking projections.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the real intelligence came from the board of director, who was the person that actually worked in all these places and knew all the doctors, right? There was no ownership. The staff wasn't being pushed. There was low productivity. And there was tremendous expenditure at the executive level. So the executive group bought themselves a huge ivory tower. They spend so much money on dinners and useless expenditure, right? So that $5 million was not bleeding at the practice level. The practice level were very healthy.
By additional cost.
Yeah. And I'll show you the staff, like how the staff were organized. How many, the executive to the blue collar ratio. How many executives were there to how many blue collars, right? You will see that it was too top heavy. And those people produced very little in return for the amount of they were consuming. So we looked at the deal. They essentially wanted $60 million for the 42 dental practices. They wanted $10 million to open, I think it was around 20 dental practices that were closed. The $10 million would be needed for N95 masks, supplies, which at the time was a shortage. Getting masks, one mask, which usually is about 10 to 20 cents, was
$5
to $7, which is absurd. But that was the environment back then. So this is just a little bit of background of the deal, okay? And I can go into a little bit more detail.
And can you fire 80% of the executive level?
Of course.
Okay.
If you buy the whole damn thing, if you're 100% owner, you know, that's the first thing you do is just wipe them out. Wipe them out. Now, so to get information, I did not talk to any of the executives or the investment bankers. I talked to the dentists that were at all these locations. And they were very excited to have another dentist come in and provide hands-on support. Because these dentists would ask for supplies, they would ask for support, and these executives were nowhere to be found. You would send them an email, they would never respond.
I understand.
And they will just say, make do with what you have, right? But if they had provided some support, they would be able to produce more, you know, with what they have. So I would call every regional manager, I would call every dentist that were in the practices and gather information as to what the environment is, why are they bleeding so much. You know, it's not because of COVID, because business was booming during COVID. It was bleeding. What I gathered was it was an absentee landlord model. The owner was not there at the business, and the business was not performing because there was nobody to really push them. Eventually, any income that was generated by the practices would go up to the executive level where there was unnecessary expenditures. Right?
Okay, and you called the 42 practice?
I called...
Or 50%?
I called the important ones.
Okay.
So let's say, here's the structure. So here's Allied Dental. Okay. You have New Jersey. You have Pennsylvania. And then you have Maryland. There are the 3 states. You guys with me so far?
Yes.
Okay. In each of these states, New Jersey had about, I would say 20 dental practices. 20. Pennsylvania had 4, and then Maryland had 5. And forget, I'm just guessing here exactly what, I don't remember the exact figures. But this, of the 60 million, the revenue of this one was around, annual revenue was around 82 million. per year. Okay? Of the annual revenue, 82 million, 40 million was coming from here, 20 practices. This was like 5 practices, and the rest 25, 30, 35, 40, 5, 15, 16, 17 practices. 30 million was coming from here, and then 10 million was coming from here. This 17 practices was producing more than the 14 million practices here in 20. You guys with me so far? Right?
Yes.
So there was no reason for me to call these guys. I was trying to find out what was going on here, and I was trying to find out what was going on here. And just to find out the key star players, the major producers, right? And some of these were non-producing. Like we were looking at the Hertz model the other day. They had a rental company, and then they had a equipment rental, and they terminated the equipment rental. One of the ideas from the board of directors was, we don't need this. We don't need this. Consolidate your efforts, right? That's how you're going to reduce your expenditures. But we're going too far ahead. But to answer your question, did I call all 42? No, I didn't. I just called the important people because there were key leaders. There were key dentists, senior dentists that had more intelligence than the lower level dentists that were just associates that couldn't provide much information for me. So the only people that I spoke to that were important were the regional managers that were in charge of each sector, because they had a lot of information, and the key leaders in each state. There were probably 2 dentists in pretty much each area that were what we call PC holders. In the dentistry world, in order to own a dental practice, you have to be a dentist. You have a license. But Allied Dental is a private equity acquired company. So they create a management company, a holding company, which is right here. It's a holding company. And in each holding company, all these practices is a PC, a professional corporation. Okay? So there are 20 professional corporations in Pennsylvania, 5 in Maryland, 5 in Pennsylvania, 20 in New Jersey, and 17 in Maryland. Each professional corporation has one lead dentist whose license is being rented out to own the place, right? So if I have 3 dental practices, each of you would be a dentist, and I'll rent out your licenses so that I can have the practice. If you know what I mean? If I wasn't a dentist. You guys understand this concept?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, cool. So the deal was 42 dental practices. The ask was 60 million. And I had to do my due diligence to see, are they motivated sellers? Do they have cash flow? And does the cash flow cover the debt service to make this deal happen? Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about this morning. We'll go through the case on motivated seller.
Okay, guys, I'll see you later.
Yes, sir.